There is a strange point in adulthood when you realize something has changed. You used to want people around you all the time. You wanted plans, conversations, weekends together, group chats, inside jokes. Someone to call when something happened. And then, slowly, something shifts. You start enjoying your own company. You stop feeling the need to reply immediately. You become less interested in meeting people just because you have nothing else to do. Some friendships that once felt essential begin to feel exhausting. And sometimes, you look at your phone and realize you haven't spoken to certain people in weeks, and you don't even miss them. That can be confusing because we're constantly told that having more friends means having a better social life. So when you start wanting fewer friendships, you may wonder whether something is wrong with you. But growing older doesn't necessarily make you antisocial. Sometimes, it changes what your brain considers worth your emotional energy. When you're younger, friendship often serves a very different psychological purpose. You are still figuring out who you are. Your identity is more flexible, and other people become part of that process. Friends influence your interests, your confidence, your beliefs, your sense of belonging, even the way you see yourself. Being around people can feel exciting because you're discovering yourself through them, but adulthood often brings something younger people don't have as much of: a stronger sense of self. You begin to know what you like, what you don't like, what you tolerate, what you don't tolerate anymore, and that changes the way you choose relationships. You may no longer want 10 people around you. You may want 2 people you can completely trust. That's not necessarily loneliness. It can be selectivity. As your self-awareness increases, social interaction can also become more intentional. You start noticing how certain relationships actually make you feel. Maybe there's the friend who always turns every conversation into competition. The friend who only calls when they need something. The friend who constantly complains but never wants to change anything. The friend you have to pretend to be a different version of yourself around. When you're younger, you may tolerate these dynamics because having the friendship feels more important than evaluating its quality. Later, the calculation changes. You start asking yourself something very simple. Do I actually enjoy being around this person? And that question can quietly eliminate a lot of relationships. There's another reason this happens. Your emotional resources become more limited. Work demands attention. Relationships require effort. Family responsibilities appear. Money becomes a concern. Your future starts feeling real. You may have goals that require discipline and periods of solitude. So socializing is no longer just about whether you have free time. It's about whether you have emotional energy. You might have 3 free hours and still not want to spend them talking to someone, not because you hate people, because your mind wants recovery. This is where many adults misunderstand themselves. They think, why don't I feel like going out anymore? But sometimes the deeper question is, why would I spend my limited energy on something that doesn't give me much emotional value? That shift can be healthy, but there is a darker possibility too. Sometimes people don't stop wanting friends because they have become more mature. Sometimes they stop wanting friends because they have become disappointed. Repeated betrayal can teach the brain to become cautious. Repeated rejection can make vulnerability feel dangerous. Constant conflict can make solitude feel safer than connection. And this is where healthy solitude and emotional avoidance can look almost identical from the outside. Both people may say, I just prefer being alone. But internally, their experiences can be completely different. One person is alone because they enjoy peace. The other is alone because closeness feels exhausting, risky, or threatening. That's an important distinction. If being alone makes you feel peaceful, restored, and more like yourself, solitude may simply be part of your personality and your changing priorities. But if being alone feels safer because you don't trust anyone, because you expect disappointment, or because you have convinced yourself that nobody is worth getting close to, then something deeper may be happening. Your independence may actually be protecting an old wound. And there is another psychological shift that happens with age. Your tolerance for superficial connection often decreases when you're younger. You can spend hours talking about almost anything because the interaction itself is stimulus and stimulating. As you grow older, you may become more interested in conversations that actually mean something. You want honesty instead of performance, effort instead of constant entertainment, comfort instead of social competition. You don't necessarily want more people. You want relationships where you don't have to constantly manage yourself. That's why an adult can have only a few close friends and still feel socially fulfilled. The conj isn't measured only by quantity. Sometimes one person who understands you can provide more emotional security than an entire group where you constantly feel misunderstood. And this may explain something else you've probably noticed. As you get older, friendships often become less spontaneous. When you were younger, friendship could happen because someone sat next to you in class, lived down the street, worked at the same place, or shared the same routine. Adult friendships require intention. Schedules don't naturally align anymore. People move, get married, have children, change careers, move across cities, develop different priorities. So sometimes what feels like losing friends is actually the natural consequence of lives moving in different directions. There doesn't have to be a villain. Sometimes two people simply become different people, and accepting that can be painful. Because adulthood teaches you that not every relationship needs to end with an argument. Some relationships simply become part of your history. You can care about someone and still realize you don't belong in each other's daily lives anymore. But here's where the psychology gets interesting. The older you become, the more you may discover that friendship isn't primarily about avoiding loneliness. It's about choosing where you can be psychologically safe. You don't need someone who agrees with everything you say. You need someone around whom you don't have to constantly defend your identity. You don't need constant communication. You need the confidence that the connection still exists when communication becomes less frequent. You don't need a huge social circle. You need relationships that survive honesty. And perhaps that's why growing older can make friendship feel more difficult but also more meaningful. You're no longer collecting people, you're filtering for compatibility. You're no longer asking, how many friends do I have? You're beginning to ask, who can I actually be myself with? That question changes everything. Because sometimes the desire for fewer friends isn't a sign that your heart is closing. It may be a sign that your standards for emotional connection are becoming clearer. But don't romanticize isolation either. Human beings still need connection. Independence can become a strength, but complete emotional withdrawal can become a prison if it is driven by fear rather than choice. So maybe the goal isn't to become someone who needs nobody. Maybe the goal is to become someone who can be alone without feeling empty, and connected without feeling trapped. Someone who doesn't keep people around out of fear of loneliness, and doesn't push everyone away out of fear of being hurt. As you get older, your circle may become smaller, your invitations may become fewer, your weekends may become quieter. And strangely enough, you may become happier because of it. But the real question isn't whether you're losing your desire for friends. It's whether you're finally learning the difference between being surrounded by people and actually feeling connected. Because sometimes growing up doesn't mean you stop needing people. It means you finally understand which people you need.